Simply put, Alzheimer's disease, or AD, attacks the cells of the brain, causing deterioration of it. It causes a mental degeneration of the people who have it. There are 3 hallmarks of AD, including beta amyloid plaques, neurofibrillary tangles, and neuronal cell death. According to Morrison, these hallmarks are specific to AD based on their timing, sequence, and location of the change taking place in the brain. These changes are split into 2 sections, the macro changes and the micro changes. Macro changes include progressive loss of brain tissue. The macro level is split into 3 subsections. First is the early stage. This can be identified as short-term memory loss and difficulty forming new memories. Early stages begin in the entheroidal cerebral cortex that is connected to the hippocampus. The hippocampus is responsible for formation of new memories. The next macro level is the mild to moderate stages of AD. Signs during this period include more prominent memory loss, such as forgetting loved ones' names temporarily. Patients will also experience a decline in ability to process complex thought and mood and personality changes. Later stages of AD will display a cortex that has atrophied, resulting in a loss of control of speech, a loss of reasoning, a loss of sensory processing, and a loss of conscious thought. In severe cases of AD, there could be impaired long-term memory, seizures, weight loss, no recognition of loved ones, inability to sit up, and impaired speech. Micro levels of AD focus more on physical degeneration of brain cells. According to Morrison, beta amyloids are believed to play a key role in AD pathogenesis. These amyloid plaques are the result of a protein called amyloid precursor protein, or APP, being cleaved in the wrong place. The enzymes responsible for cleaving in the wrong place is called a gamma secretase. In normal brain, cleavage by beta, followed by gamma secretase, should yield a soluble 40 amino acid peptide. In an AD brain, it creates a 42 amino acid peptide, which is not soluble, resulting in the beta amyloid plaque buildup. Although the relationship of these two is unknown, plaque formation has been seen correlating with tau hyperphosphorylation, which causes a collapse of microtubules. Microtubule destruction results in a dying or dead neuron. The microtubules are essential to the cell structure of the neuron. They are the tracks that nutrients is delivered on. When the tau protein hyperphosphorylates, it destroys neuron transport and communication. Later stages of AD prevent other degenerative properties, such as the reduction of chorogenic neurons. These reductions can reach as high as 75%. The loss of chorogenic activity correlates with the cognitive and memory impairment. Glutamatergic neurons are also related to AD development. These neurons are critical in forming projections in other areas of the brain. Glutamatergic is also a level of pre- and postsynaptic glutamate receptors. AD is associated with one type of the postsynaptic glutamate receptor, known as NMDA. These are very low levels of activation of this postsynaptic neuron in the AD brain. When there is an abnormal regulation of this neuron, there is said to be a vicious cycle of neuronal damage. The low levels of NMDA are present in an influx of calcium, which interferes with transduction. There is also a relationship between NMDA and the increase of APP, which is mentioned earlier as a result of the plaque buildup. Dementia patients also present low levels of this glutamate receptor and could be linked to the NFT, or the neuronal death, formation. In early stages of AD, there is also oxidative damage. These damages come from free radicals, which are high-energy electrons that are just thrown off. Damages that occur from this include upregulation of pro-inflammatory cytokines and irreparable DNA damage. Oxidative damage can also occur in any type of neuronal cell. All of these damages occurring in the brain result in an overall inflammation of the brain that causes acute damage to specific areas of the brain. This chronic inflammation causes inflammatory cytokines to go uninhibited. This promotes more apoptosis than necessary. Inflammation also increases prostaglandins. The AD process can be linked to depression due to low levels of serotonin. This can also cause cases of anxiety. Norepinephrine levels are also low and cause behavioral and psychological symptoms in AD. These symptoms are also linked with dementia patients.
Recently, there has been more and more research on the use of physical activity and dietary change as a preventative measure for Alzheimer's disease. In one such study, the use of physical activity was examined in a population of older adults diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. The purpose was to find any link between physical activity and its effects on the participants' ability to perform their daily living activities. Interestingly enough, an exercise program consisting of twice weekly, hour-long sessions consisting of walking, strength, balance, and flexibility training was found to be able to significantly slow the decline from their daily living activities in nursing homes. This leads us to wonder why physical activity helps those with Alzheimer's disease slow the degenerative nature, and not only that, but whether we can reduce our risk significantly at younger ages. Current findings show that physical activity promotes healthy brain function and oxidative damage repairing systems. Along with this, the upregulation of neutrophins during exercise has been shown to improve memory and brain plasticity. Finally, exercise helps improve healthy vascularization and energy metabolism in different regions of the brain. However, physical activity is only a part of the equation. Diet must also be taken into consideration when thinking of preventative measures for Alzheimer's disease. There are two diets in particular that have been shown to be effective in preventing the onset of Alzheimer's disease: the Mediterranean diet and the ketogenic diet. The Mediterranean diet is characterized by its high intake of vegetables, legumes, fruits, and unsaturated fat in the form of olive oil, as well as a moderately high intake of fish. Other meats, dairy products, and saturated fats are kept at lower intake levels. Adherence to the diet showed a reduction in risk of diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. This is likely due to its ability to reduce vascular risk factors, thereby reducing inflammation, decreasing the risk for diagnosis. In the ketogenic diet, higher fat intake and significantly lower carbohydrate intake in rats were found to present lower levels of beta amyloid within 2 months. The added increase of ketone bodies may also improve cognitive performance, neuronal metabolism, and increase the oxidation of proteins susceptible to oxidative damage. We now understand that regular physical activity and a healthy diet can go a long way in preventing the neurodegenerative disease. Next, we will present a case study examining Alzheimer's disease.
There was a case study done by a doctor named Stephen Sabat on Alzheimer's disease. The goal of this case study was to figure out how to reduce excess disability in patients and to reduce the amount of decrease in their social capabilities total. Excess disability is when the environment affects the sufferer's condition and makes them more dysfunctional than they should be. In other words, this case study was done in order to help caregivers be better at taking care of their patients or sufferers of AD. An example put forth by the case study is Mr. C thinks that Mrs. C is just saying that she is cold because she has Alzheimer's and that she is not actually cold. This makes Mrs. C frustrated because she is in fact cold, but she is unable to get the help that she needs because of a simple misunderstanding. Dr. Sabat called this labeling. This case study is used to find more empirical evidence of this sort of thing happening. The woman that the study is on is a 63-year-old woman named Mrs. F for privacy purposes. She was diagnosed with AD 4 years before the study, and she had a bachelor's in music and taught people folk dancing and singing in her community. She also ran her own businesses, also providing greatly for her family, such as putting together events and other projects. It was pretty evident that she was a fairly active person in her area. When she was put into the adult daycare program 2 years ago, she had a short and long-term memory problem. Jordan laid out the pathology of Alzheimer's earlier, so we know that Mrs. F went into the daycare with early-stage AD. As the disease progressed, she struggled with word finding and pronouncing things. Within a year of the study, she was having a hard time doing simple instructions. Mrs. F was also unable to eat, dress herself, and dance. She also had a harder time talking in complete sentences. This means that in a year, Mrs. F progressed to late-stage Alzheimer's. This also makes her incredibly frustrated and embarrassed that she cannot do any of these things that she used to be able to. When Mrs. F was sent to talk to people of the study, the staff members warned that she was hard to understand and would be quiet for a while and wouldn't partake in the day's care activities. However, after interacting with her, it was obvious that Mrs. F still had many social, cognitive, and emotional abilities. She would find other ways to express her thoughts if she couldn't speak it. She still had self-respect, humor, and was helpful. When the study watched Mrs. F interacting with another person in a daycare center, she was able to maintain a conversation while the daycare staff had said that she couldn't. The example was that the other patient was repeating herself and listing off her family members, and Mrs. F had a simple reply that was courteous. This goes on for a lot of things, such as looking to see if Mrs. F still had a sense of self-respect and dignity, pleasure when getting affectionate warmth, frustration, humor, creativity, and more. The thing that the study shows is that how she does it is simply different. If someone asks her to write her name, which she is unable to do, she will find a way to tell a person what her name is. She can show humor by laughing at her own blunders in speech. Instead of being frustrated and giving up, she just laughs and tries to keep a positive mindset about the situation, which would be hard to do in this case. At the end of the study, Dr. Sabat says that there needs to be an observation or an understanding of the sufferer's well-being. You can't ignore what is still good in a patient with Alzheimer's, otherwise there will be an excess of disability. This would be detrimental to the patient's health. Jordan already touched on this previously. Depression is tied into Alzheimer's, which creates anxiety and a low level of serotonin. Overall, people with Alzheimer's disease are still people and need to be treated as such. They still have a lot of cognitive ability that a caregiver or daycare staff member may not recognize.
There is currently not a cure for Alzheimer's, but drug and non-drug treatments possibly could help with both cognitive and behavioral symptoms. Most medicines work best for people in the mild to moderate stages of this disease. For example, they can keep memory loss from getting worse over time. Other medicines may help behavioral symptoms, such as trouble sleeping or feeling worried or depressed. All of these medicines have side effects and may work differently with each individual. To understand how Alzheimer's medications work, you must understand the communication network in the brain first. Neurons are the chief cells destroyed by Alzheimer's disease. In the brain, neurons connect and communicate at synapses, where tiny bursts of chemicals called neurotransmitters carry information from one cell to another. This disease disrupts this process and eventually destroys synapses and kills neurons, damaging the brain's communication network. There are two types of drugs that are currently used to treat cognitive symptoms. The first drug is a cholinesterase inhibitor. These drugs work by boosting levels of a cell-to-cell communication by providing the neurotransmitter acetylcholine that is depleted in the brain by Alzheimer's disease. Cholinesterase inhibitors can improve neuropsychiatric symptoms such as agitation or depression as well. The second drug is memantine. This drug works in another brain cell communication network and slows the progression of symptoms with moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease. This drug also is sometimes used in combination with a cholinesterase inhibitor. Adapting to the living situation to the needs of a person is an important part of any treatment plan. For someone with Alzheimer's, establishing and strengthening routine habits and minimizing memory-demanding tasks can make life much easier. Another non-drug treatment is exercise. Regular exercise is an important part of everybody's wellness plan, and those with Alzheimer's are no exception. Activities such as daily walks can improve mood and maintain the health of joints, muscles, and the heart. There is a quest underway to find new treatments to stop, slow down, or even prevent Alzheimer's. Because new drugs take years to produce from concept to market, and because drugs that seem promising in early-stage studies may not work in large-scale trials, it is critical that Alzheimer's disease research continues to grow.
Next, we will discuss some general facts and statistics of Alzheimer's disease to understand the prevalence and impact it has on not only those diagnosed, but those of caregivers and family members, and how it can affect anyone and everyone. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. It accounts for 60 to 80% of dementia cases and is the sixth leading cause of death in the United States, killing more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. Someone in the United States is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease every 66 seconds, just slightly over 1 minute. The number of Americans living with Alzheimer's disease is growing too quickly. In 2016, approximately 5.4 million Americans of all ages have Alzheimer's. 1 out of 9 of these 5.4 million are age 65 and older. By mid-century, it is likely that someone in the United States will develop Alzheimer's disease every 33 seconds. Alzheimer's is a progressive disease where dementia-like symptoms gradually worsen over time. In its early stages, memory loss is rather mild, but patients with later stages of Alzheimer's disease often are unable to have an in-depth conversation or respond to their environment, as they are not capable of remembering who or what they have seen or what they even intended to say. Among people who are 70 years old, 61% of those with Alzheimer's are expected to die before age 80, compared to 30% of people without Alzheimer's, a rate twice as high. It is becoming a more and more common cause of death, and unfortunately is the only disease among the top 10 causes of death in America that cannot be cured or even truly slowed. Alzheimer's disease can be extremely frustrating, both emotionally and physically, for patients and loved ones. In 2015, 15.9 million family and friends provided 18.1 billion hours of unpaid care to those with Alzheimer's and other dementias. This amount of care estimated an economic value of $221.3 billion. About 40% of caregivers have an income of $50,000 or less, but lose approximately $15,000 in annual income as a result of reducing hours or quitting other employment in order to meet the busy hours that caregiving for someone with Alzheimer's demands. Nearly 60% of Alzheimer's and dementia caregivers rate their emotional stress levels as high or very high, and 40% suffer from depression. Family caregivers spend more than $5,000 every year to care for someone with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease is an enormously costly chronic disease. In 2016, total payments for healthcare, long-term care, and hospice estimate to $236 billion for people with Alzheimer's and other dementias. Nearly 1 in every 5 Medicare dollars is spent on people with Alzheimer's. In 2050, it will be 1 in every $3, and the total payments could reach as high as $1 trillion.